vidyate hridaya granthi chittante sarva samsaya khiyante jasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. When the infinite light dawns upon the mind, all fetters are broken, all doubts are dissolved, all worries and anxieties melt away. Page 18, number 35. Time and eternity. Time and eternity are inseparable aspects of the one concrete reality. Time is the creative medium of the eternal, which transcends time as non-temporal experience. The eternal is reflected in time as unceasing dynamic flow. The eternal dwells in time as the all-controlling divine purpose. The eternal perfects time as its universal logical structure. May we realize the timeless essence of time. May we comprehend the eternal structure of time. May we cooperate with the creative purpose of time. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. God is the peace that passeth the understanding. I am going to talk this morning on cosmic consciousness and Nirvana. In other words, I am to deal briefly this morning with the supreme spiritual realization that man has known in history. You know, this supreme spiritual realization, authentic mystical experience, you find in the great sages, mystics, religious founders in different countries, in different ages. It is not the monopoly of any particular group or any particular race or any particular country. It is the universal spiritual heritage of man, of mankind. And it has been known by various names. In the Christian world, it is known as cosmic consciousness, as enlightenment, as the unitive consciousness, as the realization of final at-one-ment with the Supreme. These are the various names by which it is known in the Western world. In the Eastern world, it is known as Nirvana, the supreme illumination, Nirvana. Then it is known as moksha, ultimate freedom, freedom of the spirit, moksha, M-O-K-S-A. Then it is also called as samadhi, S-A-M-A-D-H-I, samadhi. Samadhi meaning the ultimate union with the Supreme, with the ground of existence, with the infinite. So these are the various names. That's why I have put it in this way. Cosmic consciousness and Nirvana. Cosmic consciousness, this is the familiar expression here in the Western world, pointing to that ultimate spiritual realization. Whereas Nirvana is also a very familiar expression in the East, referring to the same supreme spiritual realization, mystical experience. By whatever name we call it, this is the reality, the truth, the fact. It represents the full flowering, the fullest flowering of man's religious and mystical experience. and consequently, it is the ultimate goal of all our religious and spiritual effort, our ethical striving, our religious seeking. The ultimate goal of all that is this: the supreme luminous union with the ultimate, with the eternal. By whatever name you call the eternal, and by whatever name you call this experience of union. Now, I had occasion before to discuss this subject, trying to bring out different implications, religious, ethical implications of this supreme spiritual experience of man. Now, today I plan to discuss it from rather a kind of critical standpoint, because I shall tell you, just the other day I came across this magazine. As a matter of fact, a friend of ours, Dr. Forrester, he's a medical man, he brought to my attention this magazine, which is California Medicine, October 1964, just latest, October 1964. Now, there happens to be here an article, Science, Mysticism and Psychopharmacology. Science, Mysticism and Psychopharmacology, written by Dr. Max Heyman, Los Angeles. The other day I met our friend Dr. Forrester, and he brought to my attention this magazine. Of course, he does not agree with it, and so he wanted to discuss the matter with me. So I thought I would like to share with you the discussion, and also my examination and evaluation of the standpoint of this particular writer. Because in that way, perhaps you will have a broader understanding of the true meaning of mysticism, true meaning of authentic, authentic mysticism and authentic yoga, what all these stand for. And this kind of knowledge is particularly valuable today because you hear all kinds of ideas and all kinds of confusion on the subject. A very tremendous amount of confusion exists, misunderstanding exists, the kind of misunderstanding which you find not only in the layman but even in higher academic circles. So a clarification of the different issues involved in this: science, mysticism, yoga, etc. Now, there are 3 points which have specially been made, or which I find in this article, which I think I should like to bring out and critically examine. 3 main propositions here. One is, throughout this article we find, the article is called Science, Mysticism, and Psychopharmacology. Now, throughout this article we find that there is an unconscious equation or identification in the author's mind between mysticism and drug experience. Isn't that horrible? Especially, somebody who is supposed to be well informed in this matter, he just takes it for granted, takes it for granted that mystic experience, yoga experience, spiritual, realization in the higher sense of the word is to be equated with or has the common psychic origin as drug experience. For example, the kind of experience which is induced by, say, mescaline or peyote or LSD-25, he just takes it for granted. Just takes it for granted that these are the same psychic origin and these are to be equated. I was so shocked to see this. When a person writes in a respectable journal, he's supposed to have some good background, briefing on the subject. Whereas he just assumes something to be granted, and his knowledge of mysticism, is just based on second-hand, third-hand, fourth-hand, nth-hand information. You see? Because otherwise, he would not have just unconsciously equated the two. All right. Let me now tell you why this is end information. You take any great mystic of the world, any great, genuine mystic of the world. As a matter of fact, the founders of all the great religions were foremost mystics. As Bergson, the great French philosopher, points out in his two sources of morality and religion, he says that higher mystical experience is the quintessence of religion. All religious ideas flow from authentic, first-hand mystic experience. You will find all the great founders of the different world religions were foremost mystics. Take the case of Buddha, take the case of Lao Tse, take the case of Jesus Christ, case of Moses, case of Muhammad. You see, that was the source of the revelation. We talk about revelation. Now, mysticism, mystic experience is the source of that revelation. Revelation of the divine will, of the mystery of being that is unfolded before the human mind on account of this direct experience, contact with the Supreme, with the ground of all being. And if you read them, read their sayings and study them, you will find none of them was a drug addict. Far from it, you see. None of them had any drug experience. They had their highest kind of mystical realization, but none of them had any drug experience. Take the case of Buddha. He had that wonderful mystical realization as a result of his meditation. Every great mystic got it the hard way. Not a magic pill, not instant realization as they talk about nowadays. Not instant mysticism, Got it the hard way. Long periods of striving and straining and self-discipline and prayer and meditation and self-organization. So as a result of that, Buddha had his enlightenment. What was the content of that enlightenment? He had that mystic experience. He saw how the whole world, with its endless variation, multitudinous forms of existence, floats on the ocean of one infinite life. That was the content of his illumination. The whole world with its endless multiplicities of existence floats on, is sustained by, is submerged in an infinite ocean of life. That was the vision, the experience he had. And what is the implication of that experience? The implication of that experience is not just a subjective experience, just a private subjective experience of a particular individual. No. It was the experience which brought that particular individual, whom we call Buddha, into direct union with the universal reality, with all that exists. So as a result of that experience, what happened? The content of that experience has been stated, in the different books dealing with the subject. The content of that experience can be expressed briefly in this way: wisdom plus love or compassion plus peace and serenity plus full freedom. That is the content of authentic mystic experience. It is not just a private subjective experience. You take a drug, you take something, and you go inside and have some experience. No. It was the contact with the universal reality, going beyond oneself, not going inside and getting stuck in some corner of one's unconscious mind. Not that, far from it. It is going beyond, transcending the limitations of individuality and coming face to face with the ultimate reality. That is the kind of experience. And consequently, we find that from that experience spontaneously flowed these things. As I say, wisdom, understanding of the truth and the meaning of life, the purpose of existence, that is wisdom. Understanding of the mystery of being and the purpose of one's own existence in the total scheme of the universe, that is wisdom. Then, love, compassion. The wonderful spirit of love and compassion for the whole world, for all living creatures. Reverence for life, as life. So that is the second. Love, compassion. An unspeakable, indescribable sense of peace and joy, serenity, which nothing can disturb. No storm and stress, no agitation on the surface can disturb that profound peace which is experienced as a result of that mystic realization. So which we find now when we see the picture of Buddha sitting in meditation, that's the main thing which is brought out there. The experience of that profound peace, peace that passes the understanding. So it is a supra-rational experience, something that passes the understanding. Supra-rational, that is why it is called mystical. Because the ordinary human intellect cannot fathom the mystery or cannot reach that point. Something more is needed for that. So it is supra-rational, supra-logical experience. Ordinary logic cannot fathom the mystery of that reality and that experience. Fourthly, it brings full freedom of the spirit, full flowering of the divine spark which is within man. See that sense of freedom, sense of salvation, sense of liberation. The liberation from doubt, liberation from all fear, anxiety, worry, liberation from all sense of limitation and sinfulness. So there is that sense of boundless freedom which comes in the train of that mystic realization. So you take any other mystic, you find the same thing. Now take the case of Moses. He had that mystical experience of the burning bush, which was the beginning of his spiritual life. You see? That is a mystical experience. He saw the burning bush, the bush afire, but still it was not burned, it was not destroyed. Is it not a mystical experience? Not an ordinary logical experience. As a result of that experience, what happened? What happened was that his destiny of life was revealed to him. His purpose, his mission was revealed to him. The mystery of being was revealed to him. Being revealed itself to him as, I am that I am. That was the mystery of being which was revealed to him. So on and so forth. I can go on spending a lot of time just in describing all these things, the various implications of such mystical experience. But the point to be noted is, here you find, as a matter of fact, among the religious leaders, Moses is supposed by many to be the least mystical. But still you find he had a very profound, very genuine mystical experience there. And that was the beginning, of his true spiritual life, which brought also into his life a great sense of confidence. First of all, he might have doubt. Well, he's up to doing something like that. But he had that great sense of confidence. Yeah? Why confidence? Because he now found himself supported by, inspired by higher power, which he contacted in a very mystical way. Not in an ordinary way, but in a mystical way. Take the case of Jesus Christ. His spiritual life and life of greatness began with that mystical experience he had at the time of baptism. As soon as he came out of water, he had that baptismal water, he had that mystical experience. He saw the heavens rent asunder. That was the vision that came to him. Heavens rent asunder. And the Spirit descended in the form, in the shape of a dove, representing peace. And then he heard the voice speaking to him out of the heavens, out of the void, the voice of the divine. Thou art my son, I am well pleased in thee. So this is a mystical experience. Not a kind of experience which you get by taking drugs, not a kind of experience which you get by just logic chopping. Logic chopping. It is a different kind of experience which grows. The kind of experience which grows out of the integration of personality. A long, long period of self-preparation. Very hard way. It's a long period of self-preparation, self-organization, self-purification, self-discipline. As a result of which an experience like that comes, and that experience is truly union with the infinite. As a result of which union, the mystery of being is revealed, the purpose of existence is unfolded, and there is an experience of freedom and unspeakable joy and self-confidence. I've told you all these. Similarly, you can take any other mystic, any other mystic. Take the case of St. Francis of Assisi. Take the case of Meister Eckhart. Take the case of, any mystic you name. In recent times, Sri Ramakrishna, Mahatma Gandhi was a great mystic and a man of tremendous action. He never touched any drug in his life. Take the case of Sri Aurobindo. Any great mystic you name, and you will find that it is an entirely different experience from anything that can be imagined or produced by any artificial. Farthest. Whereas this author, I find, just takes it for granted, that drug experience, LSD experiences, mystic experiences, yoga, he goes on equating all these things, mentioning all these in the same breath, as if they are just the same thing. Now I shall bring up some other points. This is the first point he makes, this unconscious identification on his part, which is very thoughtless, and which is based upon really, as I say, extremely second-hand information. Another point I wish Dr. Forrester were here today, because it was he who brought this, to my attention. Then another thing he says that mysticism I'm quoting his words, mysticism in whatever guise is a contaminant of the scientific attitude. Is a contaminant, something which contaminates scientific attitude. In other words, his assumption here is that science and mysticism are poles apart. Not only that, science should get away from, spiritual experience or mystic experience or yogic experience, because that will spoil the scientist. That will contaminate, that will spoil the scientist. Yeah. Here again, of course, his observation is made upon his, total ignorance of what true mysticism is. This is what he is saying. Let me take the greatest scientist of the world today. Greatest scientist of the 20th century, Einstein. Let us see what he has to say about mysticism and about the relationship between science and mysticism. Let me quote from it. Read it for you. The most beautiful and most profound emotion we can experience is the sensation of the mystical. Just imagine Einstein saying this. It is the sensation of the mystical. Not only that, it is the source of all true science. So here this man is telling us that mysticism is a contaminator of the scientific attitude. And here the greatest scientist of the 20th century is telling us that it is the source of all science. So I can read the whole thing to you. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. Is as good as dead. A person who has had no experience of the mystical. Einstein is saying here very boldly and plainly, he is as good as dead. True. He is as good as spiritually dead. That is why sometimes we find a scientist who has had no experience of the mystical, he is cool, calculating, aloof. He really becomes the devil's disciple, spiritually dead. A scientist can become a devil's disciple if he has had no experience of the mystical, because he has his emotional side of life stunted, dried up. So he becomes cool, aloof, calculating, dry, he has a sense of, a ruthless attitude to the welfare of mankind. And it is that kind of scientist who can easily play into the hands of a dictator of the country. Just as in the case of Hitlerite Germany, there were scientists who experienced, who allowed their intellect to be prostituted. You see, a scientist who has had no experience, no love experience that mysticism brings, would be willing to go for a prostitution of his intellect, playing into the hands of a ruthless dictator, which can happen in the case of, in Hitler at Germany, or Italy under the rule of Mussolini, or Soviet Union. There are scientists who do that. Whereas a scientist who also has the emotional side expanded, enriched, by virtue of some amount of mystical experience, as Einstein had, as many other scientists have, then they can be not only a better scientist, but a better man, which is very important. For a scientist to be a better scientist and at the same time a better man, a better human being, is very, very important. And to both these ends, a genuine mystical experience can be very helpful. Let me read another line still. On another occasion, Einstein declared the cosmic religious experience. A cosmic religious experience is the strongest and noblest mainspring of scientific research. It is the mainspring of scientific research. Because when you have that mystical experience, you have the right kind of devotion to truth and at the same time love of mankind. There is a wonderful combination of these two things when a scientist has some experience of the mystical. On the one hand, genuine dedication, single-minded devotion to the pursuit of truth. On the other hand, a genuine love of mankind, concern for the welfare of man. And it is a combination of these two qualities which can make a scientist great as a scientist and also great as a man. Another point on this, mysticism, true mystical experience I am talking here. I am not talking here of pseudo-mysticism. In everything you can well imagine there is the real thing and there is the counterfeit thing. In every matter. You take, just as in coins, you have the real coin and the counterfeit coin. So in religion, there is the real religious person and there are people who are pseudo-religious. Take the name of religion, but not truly religious, you see. There are men who are true scientists, and then there are pseudo-scientists. Just as in medical practice, there are true medical men, really competent, authorized medical practitioners. And then there are cranks, quacks. There are quacks also. So everything, in every sphere, there is the right thing, genuine thing. There is also the counterfeit, the pseudo thing. Now, true mysticism, speaking of love, may be defined as a non-dualistic experience of love, which is another way of saying that true mystical experience brings into our mind the genuine spirit of universal love. Until and unless we have some experience of the mystical, some sensation of the mystical, as Einstein puts it, unless you have that, your love cannot be perfected. It cannot become non-dualistic. It cannot be all-embracing. Let me explain what I mean here. Now, ordinarily, the love that we experience is dualistic. It is always accompanied by hatred. Duality. This psychical polarity of love and hatred. So ordinary religious experience of love is dualistic love. You love certain things which you believe. You love those who share your ideas and creed. And then at the same time, you hate those who don't share your creed. And that is ordinary religious experience. You love those, ordinarily pious man, he loves those who belong to his group, belong or share or accept his creed, his theology. Those who don't accept are looked upon as the devil's disciples. They belong to the devil, not to God. So they hate them. So here it is. This is dualistic experience of love. Love is accompanied by hatred. We love some, and then we completely hate others. That's what happens. I'm reminded of an anecdote. One time a man was on the point of dying. And then a priest came to them and said, "Are you now ready to renounce the devil?" He said, "Dear priest, in my position I would not antagonize anybody." Now, there is a humorous side to this. He would not antagonize anybody, even the devil. But there is another side here, The other side of this is that when man stands face to face with death, he undergoes an inner change of consciousness. This is a very important psychological truth. Standing face to face with death, man undergoes a profound change of consciousness to the point that hate, negative feelings of hatred and jealousy and vindictiveness in a magical way, in that moment disappear. There can be a feeling of compassion for everything, for all. This happens. Confrontation with death brings about this profound transformation of the inner consciousness. And so at that moment it can be really said that a person has some experience of the mystical, of oneness of all, oneness of the whole of existence. That is why perhaps, many mystics and yogis sometime in their life came face to face with death, had an occasion to shake hands with death, which brought about a change in their life. A kind of what Martin Heidegger called existential experience of death, experiencing, contacting death face to face. It has a tremendous transforming experience of life. Many mystics and many saints went through that kind of experience. For example, if you read the life of Ramana Maharshi, you will find how his whole spiritual life began with his existential experience of death. He contemplated death and saw death around in his presence, and how that brought about a change in him. Many mystics therefore go to do their prayers and meditations on the cremation ground, on the burial ground. So there they bring themselves face to face with death and have an opportunity of looking at life from a different angle. Because in that moment, when you stand face to face with death, all the vanities and trivialities and banalities of life in a moment, in a flash, you have an opportunity of looking at life from the standpoint of eternity. Sub specie eternitatis, as Spinoza used to say. Ability life under the aspect of eternity. You have that opportunity there. So that is it. And this is what mystical experience involves, a non-dualistic experience, So, another interesting anecdote in this connection I may tell you. Rabia was a great Sufi mystic, Rabia, very well known. And her mind was full of love of God. One time, a friend came to her and said that I would like to know how much is your hatred for the devil. Because many religious people, their minds are full of hatred for the devil. They are all the time fighting with the devil. And this fighting with the devil becomes the most religious thing in their life, fighting with the devil. So he wanted to know how much is her hatred for the devil. Rabia gave a very, very beautiful answer. She said, "My dear friend, my mind is so full with the love of God that there is no room for the devil there. No room for the devil there." That is genuine mystical experience. A person who has that mystical experience of oneness of all, in his mind, in his consciousness, there is no room for the devil. Why? Because he realizes that the devil is, after all, the offspring of ignorance. You see, offspring of ignorance. It's the negative fact, not a positive reality. God is positive reality. Devil is a negative fact. Devil thrives upon ignorance. So long as ignorance is there, devil is there. The moment ignorance, darkness of ignorance is dispelled, devil vanishes into thin air. There is only God. So it is this mystical experience, the mystical experience alone, which can bring into your mind the genuine spirit of universal love and compassion. And by that power of love and compassion, we can transform the devil into an image of God. That's what also we find in the life of the great sages. Because of that true love they had, they could transform, wicked people, criminal people, into better men. Finally, I shall tell you about another point he has made quite at length. The author has at length discussed this point. He says that just as drug experience and some other similar experiences bring about a kind of regression a psychic regression to an earlier phase of development of the mind. Similarly, mysticism also, yoga also, is a kind of psychic regression to an earlier phase of development. You see, that is the main theme of it, of the whole article. That mysticism represents a regression to an earlier phase of development. It says that in all of us, there is a yearning to go back to childhood. You see, childhood was a state of great joy, of great peace, of no worry, no anxiety, no fear, a state of blissful dependence upon the mother or the father, sitting on the lap of the mother. The child is absolutely safe and secure. Nothing to worry about. So that was a wonderful experience. And having lost that state, in all of us, there is a longing. There is a longing to go back to that condition. And so he says that just as some drugs bring about that regression to this childhood condition of absolute dependence upon the parental authority, and blissful union with the mother. Similarly, he says that all mystic experience also is like that, the regression to that earlier condition. There are many things to discuss about this matter, from many angles we can study it and approach it, but I have just a few minutes at my disposal. I should like to bring out just one or two vital points. First of all, much of this kind of thinking and argument is, Dr. Forrester is right there. I did not notice it. I am so glad that he is there. Yes. Now, much of the reasoning of this nature is based upon the observation of superficial resemblance and mistaking resemblance for identity. Now, the mystic says that in his most illumined moment, exalted moment of spiritual experience, he has union with the infinite, with the eternal. So there is this union there. He talks about union, union with the eternal, union with the divine, union with the cosmic father maybe, union with the divine mother maybe. So he talks about this thing. As soon as somebody who has no personal experience or he has no better information about genuine mystical realization would think of, well, this is also the childhood condition, this is also what some neurotic patients talk about. They talk about being like child again, or they talk about being reunited with the mother or with the father, or going back to that childhood condition of absolute, blissful security and peace without anything to worry about. So that seems to be the same thing. This is, the whole argument is based upon this, They see a resemblance. Mystic talks about union with the divine. A neurotic may talk about union with the mother. Or in the childhood condition, that's what existed. Union, blissful union with the mother. Whereas the mystic talks about blissful union with the divine, with the eternal. Now, a child is a child, and similarly a mystic also feels that he is a child. There is a resemblance there. Every great mystic will find, he says that I am a child of the divine. I am a child of immortality. I am a son of the Heavenly Father. Every great mystic has said. He has expressed, different mystics have expressed it in different ways. But you find it there. This experience of union with the Heavenly Father or Heavenly Mother or the infinite reality or the eternal or the absolute. So there is certainly a resemblance there. And what many writers do, as soon as they see this resemblance, they conclude that these are identical. This is a regression, going back to the earlier condition of union with the mother or with the father. Now, as I tell you, that this is a very superficial resemblance, and beneath this resemblance, there is a world of difference. So I should now like to tell you a little why I say so, why there is a world of difference between the two experiences. Now, first of all, a great mystic experiences himself as a child of the infinite, or a child of the divine reality. He experiences himself as that. But there is a world of difference between his being a child and a child being a child. You know what I mean? You see, why there is a world of difference? First of all, a child has not yet physically, mentally, is not yet physically, mentally grown enough to take care of himself. So he is dependent upon the mother or the father, absolutely, for his life. There is this absolute dependence there. And this dependence happens to be upon another finite human being. Child is a finite human being who is just born. And then he is dependent upon another finite human being, because of the fact he is not physically, mentally grown enough to take care of himself. In the case of a genuine mystic, what do you find? You find not only that he is strong enough to take care of himself, but a genuine mystic is a true master. He is a master of himself. You know, that is why, with regard to the great founders of religions or spiritual leaders of the world or the foremost mystics and sages, we call them masters. Why? Because whereas a child cannot make any decision for himself, does not know what is what, and cannot make any decision for himself, far from being of any guidance to other people, a true mystic, an authentic mystic, he has realized his own true self and its relationship to the Supreme, by virtue of which he has attained absolute self-mastery, what is called self-integration. He is an integrated person. He is a master of himself. And as a result of that, not only he can make decisions by himself, he is the source of his own decisions. He makes decisions in life out of the depth of his own being. Confronted with however challenging a situation may be, he can rise equal to the situation and make a decision in the light of his own inner being. That is why we call him a master. Not only that, he can be a source of inspiration and guidance to thousands and thousands of other people. The reason why he is called a guru, a master, a guide. You see, the world of difference between the two. Still he calls himself a child. Why? He calls himself a child because he has seen a broader truth, a higher truth, which the ordinary psychoanalysts or psychiatrists have no conception of. He has seen the larger truth that with all his independence and freedom, an individual human being is part and parcel of the universal life of the cosmic whole. Universal life force, if you call it that way. But he is not an isolated entity. With all his freedom and independence, he is not an isolated entity. He is not like an atom. He is an integral part of the cosmic whole. He is part and parcel of the universal life of God, of the Absolute. He is a channel of expression of higher values that belong to the eternal. He has experienced, he has realized this profoundest spiritual truth about human life. That's why he calls himself, and he feels himself as a child. Not because he is dependent upon another human being. No, far, far from that. He is a master of himself. He is capable of making his own decision and meeting any challenge that life may pose to him. He feels himself as a child, first because of this, that he has experienced his profoundest truth. He has seen the nature, the face of the universal reality, of the cosmic reality. And he feels himself an integral part of that reality, a channel of expression of that reality, a focalized center of action of the Supreme. That's why he is a child. Secondly, because he feels himself, he calls himself a child, because he is kind of reborn. Having seen that truth, that vast truth, having realized the deepest potentialities of his own existence, he feels himself reborn. reborn on a higher plane of consciousness. He sees a bright, glorious future before him in which to unfold himself, to realize his deeper potentiality. A new life begins for him. You see? That's why he feels himself as a child. Just as the great philosopher Nietzsche felt himself as a child. The other day I told you about his remark from Das Zarathustra, that at the highest point of personality development, the man again feels himself to be a child. For this reason, that he begins to feel the newer potentialities of his existence. A new bright future is unfolded before his vision. So he is a child. Still another reason why he feels himself as a child is by virtue of the fact that his whole personality has been unified, has been integrated, has been transformed by the thrilling touch of the divine. By virtue of this fact, his whole life becomes spontaneous, effortless, free, like the child. There was some kind of spontaneity in the case of the child. A child lives without any inhibition, more or less. He acts freely. What he thinks inside, he expresses outside. There is no hypocrisy there. In other words, there is no split personality in the case of the child. There is no split. There is no inner division. There is no hypocrisy. There is no double talk. There is no double think. So a child's life is spontaneous life. That is the great beauty in that spontaneity. A great idea to admire in that spontaneity. But the spontaneity of the child is an unstable equilibrium. It is based upon innocence, ignorance. The child has not yet seen the sunny side of life, has not yet become acquainted with people who have double talk and double think. He has not yet been acquainted. He has not yet been introduced to the rough and tumble, to the fact that there are, just as on the one hand there are good people, on the other hand there are unspeakably wicked people too. See, he has not yet been introduced to these discords and contradictions and discrepancies and conflicts of life and social existence. So, his spontaneity is an unstable equilibrium. As soon as he grows up and comes in contact with these different things, darkness and light in society, good and bad in society, well, his spontaneity is gone. You see, his spontaneity is now, his life also now becomes riddled with conflicts and contradictions, begins to suffer inner division within himself. So his spontaneity is gone. Whereas in the case of a genuine mystic, what happens? He goes through a period of struggle and striving. He has already seen the sunny side of life. He goes through it. He goes through suffering. He goes through struggle and striving. He goes through the discords of society. He has met with good people. He has met with terribly bad people too. He has had experience about it. Having experienced these things, having gone through all the struggle of life, eventually he attains a state of integration. He realizes or comes in contact with a higher power. As a result of that realization, his life becomes harmonized again. A greater kind of harmony. Not the harmony of innocence of the child. Not the harmony of instinct and impulse in the case of the child. It is a harmony which is brought about in his life by his vision of truth and beauty and goodness that dwells in the ultimate, in the eternal. By virtue of his luminous union with the eternal, a new rhythm and a new harmony descend upon his life. So he is now able to function spontaneously, effortlessly, freely again, like a child. But at the same time, there is a world of difference between the spontaneity of the child, which is based upon innocence, and the spontaneity of the sage or the great mystic, which is based upon profound wisdom and real contact with the divine. But, you see, whatever I may say, there are people who just want to be victims of words, Okay? The mystic constitutes the child, and a child is the child, and therefore so mystic, when he becomes a child, goes back to the childhood condition. So they draw this conclusion. Okay? So this is what I call the fallacy of mistaking superficial resemblance for identity. Failing to see, or fallacy of false identification. It is the fallacy of false identification. Failing to see that there is a world of difference behind such superficial resemblances of life. But anyway, I think I've been able to, convey to you mainly this idea that authentic mystic experience is not going back to the childhood condition, but moving forward to the height of human potentiality, moving forward to the experience and the realization of the ultimate ground of existence, on the basis of which experience a man can live out of the free spontaneity of wisdom and love. Let us meditate for a couple of minutes on the positive spiritual essence of our being. Instead of dwelling, as we so often do, on the negative sides of our nature, on our limitations, on our sinfulness, and so on and so forth, instead of doing that, in meditation it is of vital importance to concentrate on the positive spiritual essence of our being, on the latent divinity of our nature, on the essence of our inmost self as a child of immortality, as a child of the infinite. The more you concentrate on the divinity of your nature, the more you transform your whole being accordingly. What a man thinks to become, the Buddha says. That is very, very true. So that is an important thing. Another point connected with this one is that while meditating, we can always put this question to us. Everybody can put this question to himself like this: what is the best in me? Think of that. What is the best in me? That is to say, what are my strongest points? What are the best qualities and possibilities of my nature? And how I can more and more develop this bestness, bring out this bestness. That is a good question to put to oneself. What are my best possibilities, and how I can develop my possibilities to the best of my ability? And then, how, as I more and more develop my best qualities and elements of my nature, how I can make the most constructive use of my best in the service of God, for the good of humanity. These are, elements of self-inquiry, which are of very crucial importance. And as we more and more direct our thinking along these lines, we release the creative energies of our soul. We more and more understand the lines along which we have to express ourselves spiritually to the best of our ability.